A few weeks ago, Refuse Fascism put out a call to get in the streets, to drive out the Trump-Pence regime, no matter what the elections are. The fascist program of the Trump-Pence regime became more consolidated and the full and ugly face of the polarization that was unleashed. The fact that Democrats won a majority in the House did not change this. What we saw through the elections of the Democratic opposition, and again last night and this morning from Nancy Pelosi, was that they would not confront this, but instead normalized, accommodated, and conciliated, and then a promise to collaborate with a regime that is bringing in an American fascism. People who hate and fear this whole fascist nightmare and direction must now act with great determination in the streets, while organizing to move tens of thousands and soon millions to join them in the streets with sustained determination until we drive this fascist regime from power in the name of humanity. This is why we are out here today. And we are calling on people to be in the streets with us this Saturday, November 10th. And right now I'm going to pledge, we pledge that we will not stand aside while there is still a chance to stop a regime that imperils humanity and the earth itself. Join us. Let's stand together with conviction and courage, overcoming fear and uncertainty, to struggle with all that we demand. The Trump-Pence regime must go. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. This nightmare must end. The Trump-Pence regime must go! Must go! Must go! Must go! All right, we're going to have a few speakers out here today. And right now I'd like to introduce from Our Revolution Evanston, Steve Frank. Let's give him a hand.
Oh, do I just talk in this one? Oh. It's on. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming out tonight. And I was invited by Lou to give a few words. I think the expert on voter suppression hasn't shown up yet, so I'd like to address some of those issues. Is everyone aware that this last presidential election, they say that Hillary Clinton won by 3 million votes, but it actually might have been more like 11 million. And I think that we can do better than that. I think we can do better than a presidential candidate who ignored the progressive wave of voters in America, and probably that contributed to her loss. Is everyone aware of Interstate Crosscheck, run by Chris Kobach, who thankfully just lost his election bid to become governor of Kansas? He has disenfranchised millions of voters, mostly people of color, and I think that the right-wingers realize that there are enough people who are, to use the current term, woke, that you know, they can't win unless they suppress the vote. And so now that we have picked up a few Democratic Congress people in Illinois, and we got rid of horrible Governor Ruiner, I think it's incumbent on all of us to call our elected officials, write letters, do what we can to hold their nose to the fire, hold their feet to the fire, and get them so, you know, they're on our side. Because I hate to put it this way, but we're right. The whole world is in danger unless we take some dramatic action. Thank you for coming out, and I'm going to pass you on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Let's give Steve a hand. Steve Frank, Our Revolution, Evanston. And next is a person I had the pleasure of getting to know personally, a man that truly lives his faith, Rabbi Michael Ben Yosef. Give him a hand.
Thank you, brother. Shalom Aleichem. Peace and blessings to you all. We are all here for one reason, to stand against a regime that cares not about the people. And we're here to send a resounding message. It says in the Torah 36 times that you are to care for the poor, the stranger, the orphan, and the widow. And you must not turn your back against those who are in need. And those who are traveling from clutches of evil, of disaster, and of circumstances that we don't even understand, from terror and hunger, to better have a better life for themselves. Come here. We want you here. We want this regime out. We want them to go. We don't want the evil fascist ideology that stands for hatred, that sends pipe bombs to former presidents, to terrorize those who stand for truth, to silence those who have a voice to stand for the victims, and for those who struggle in the streets. This has to stop, or we must be unified. Now this message is for the post-election. The post-election, I am disgusted that the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, has gotten to bed with the devil. Gotten to bed with the devil to collaborate against a man that does not care for those who struggle, those of people of color, those with different zip codes, those with different names and ethnicities and education. Those things must stop. But for those Democrats, we gave you the House. And how dare you disgrace the people who supported you? How dare you? So now we need a new leadership. And that's why we're here assembled. Like-minded individuals who have the hearts and dreams and aspirations to stand for truth and liberation of people of color, of all world ethnicities. Not just the 1%. Not for those who are just tied down, but for everybody. And for you that sits in the disgrace house or in Pennsylvania, this message for you. You days are numbered.
All right. Woo! Rabbi Mikhail Ben Yosef, let's give him a hand. And this next brother here, he wants to solve the world's issues by ripping it off of its roots and starting something brand new based on humanity. And I also had a great honor to get to know him personally as well. From the Revolution Club Chicago, Noche Diaz.
I want to start off by saying that the face of this political moment right now is not which face won what office yesterday. The face of this political moment is, you can see, marching in the caravan to the border. The face of the children who are being held in prison camps at the border. The faces of young women growing up in what could be a Handmaid's Tale society. The faces of the black and brown youth who are already criminalized and targeted by police terror, police who will now be unleashed further by this white supremacist fascist regime. That is the face of this moment right now, that we have come here, the future that we have come to fight for. And the battle that is shaping up is not amongst Republican and Democrat. It is amongst the fascist regime and its fascist followers and those who refuse to accept a fascist America. And everyone will have to answer which side they're on, okay? History will not judge you by whether or not you gave a thumbs down to what we're facing. History will not judge you by whether or not you voted in what you thought was an opposition vote. History will judge you on whether or not, if you see this horror, you act like you know what it is that we are facing and the dangers that humanity is now suffering and will suffer even greater. Acting in the streets with determination in our millions to do what they should have done in Nazi Germany, which is to stop this fascist regime before they can unleash their full program. That is why we in the Revolution Club unite with the call from Refuse Fascism, for the millions to act together in the streets with sustained determination to drive this regime out in the name of humanity. Not in the name of a blue wave or a red wave or this or that, but in the name of humanity, this must be brought to a halt, okay? And we in the Revolution Club live by 6 points of attention, not for ourselves, but for humanity, for a world without borders, for a world where all the chains are broken, for a world where no human being is illegal, where we can get to a world free of oppression and exploitation, and where someone like Donald Trump could never come close to any instrument of power. A world where a fascist nightmare facing humanity could never come about again. And a world where the so-called liberal alternative is another form of oppression. We fight for a world, a communist world for all of humanity, and we're fighting to make a revolution now. And everybody, as we act together in the name of humanity to drive out this regime, we need to talk about the problem and the solution. Why are we here and where do we go? Okay? I encourage everyone to go to revcom.us and find out about Bob Avakian, who gets into why we need an actual revolution and how we could really make a revolution. But right now, the question facing all of us is, where are you going to be this Saturday? Because I'm going to be right here at 1 o'clock with the rest of Refuse Fascism and everybody else who will demand together that in the name of humanity, this nightmare must end. The Trump-Pence regime must go.
We refuse to accept a fascist America. And this gentleman here works with refusefascism.org in Chicago, and it also is a part of the Two Spirit Society, educating us on pretty much the LGBTQ history of Native Americans. My buddy Reginald.
Halito. Yes, I'm Reginald Sawyer. I am the president of the Chicago Two Spirit Society. I'm of the Choctaw Cherokee Nation. And first of all, I want to start off by acknowledging the fact that although that the Democrats took the House last night, they took back the House last night, history was made last night because 3 Native American sisters won election into the House. 2 of them won into the House, and one of them is our first Two-Spirit lesbian Native American sister. Her name is Sister Sharice Davis. If you're watching this broadcast, Sister Sharice, I bid you congratulations. And we also bid congratulations to Deb Holland, who is the Laguna Pueblo Nation, who also won election into the House, which I'm very proud of. Also, let us also acknowledge Mr. Jared Polis, who is the first ever openly gay governor of Colorado. Let's remember him as well. Okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Now, although we did have a nice victory last night, it's time to face facts. This regime, because let's face it, I'll call him the orange bastard. I owe him no allegiance. I will never call him president. I will never acknowledge him. As far as I'm concerned, both him and his whole regime can kiss my ass and call me Native American fry bread. That's how I feel about him. But anyway, we need to also keep aware of the fact, too, that we're still in a battle in here. We still have to fight still have to fight this regime. Although that Jeff Sessions has been terminated and he's out, we still got to fight ahead of us. We still got to fight for a revolution for all of us. And although that we have some bad apples and a few Apple Indians from the Crow Nation that has sold out to the Trump regime, but they don't represent us. They don't represent all of us Native Americans, and they don't represent all of us people. And although we do have some bad apples that are so-called conservative people of color, what they fail to realize is that this man does not give a damn about them either. He don't care about them. He don't care about nobody but himself. And we also have to remind all of our LGBT people, especially those brothers and sisters that are here in Chicago and all over, that we also have to fight for marriage equality. Because marriage equality is in danger of being lost as well. We also need to remember our rights as LGBT people as being lost as well. We have to fight. We have to fight and keep the fight going. That don't mean that just because we had a Democratic victory last night that we put in the hands of, no. We have to stand up and fight for our rights and keep it going. And we also need to demand and tell our newly elected officials, get to work. It's time for you to get to work. It's time for you to get down there. If you're going to investigate everything and be about it and do it now. It's time to get to work and keep it busy. We are dealing with a dangerous situation here, but we got to stay focused. Because as I remind all of my Two-Spirit people on the res and in the big cities, that yes, we have a fight ahead of us. Because if we don't fight, we're all doomed. All of us. So let's keep focused, stay focused, and in the name of the Creator, let's keep it going. And as we say in Choctaw, as we say in Cherokee, Donanagonahi, until we meet again. So with that in mind, I'm Reginald Sawyer, president of the Chicago Two-Spirit Society. And as we say in Cherokee, Donanagonahi, which until we meet again. Donanagonahi, all my relations.
Give it up for Reginald Sawyer, president of Two-Spirit Society. And also fighting for our right to make sure every one of our votes is counted, passionately basically putting a roadblock in the direction the Trump-Pence regime wants to go by at least getting all our votes counted, attacking a suspicious electronic voting machines. Here is Dr. Laura Chamberlain.
Thank you so much. Woo! Okay, I want to ask everybody here, how many people went and voted yesterday? Raise your hands, okay? Great, glad to hear it. Some of you don't vote, that's fine, but a lot of people voted yesterday. So why is it that millions, I heard 44 million more Americans voted for Democrat yesterday than Republican, but somehow we got a Republican Senate out of it. How can that happen? How does this happen every single election where millions of people show up to vote and yet we get McConnell or, in the past, Paul Ryan, right? Or Trump. Election fraud. And thank God that some of the Democratic candidates are getting it. Thank God for Stacey Abrams. Woo! In Georgia, she did not concede, and she is going to fight that. Just fierce, horrible election fraud that happened in Georgia. They purged the voters from the voting ranks. They didn't give them the machines. They wouldn't even give them the cords to plug in the machines. It was ridiculous in Georgia. So thank you, Stacey Abrams. You know who I want for president in 2020? Stacey Abrams. Because she has proven that she will fight. That's what we need. It's our fighters that'll go out and make sure that every vote is counted. I hear that Ben Nelson is not conceding in Florida either. I don't know why Andrew Gillum conceded. It was ridiculous. More fraud, more voter suppression. But thank God, the felons in Florida, they got the right to vote. Finally. Oh my God, the ex-felons got the right to vote. So we are a nation full of voter suppression and vote flipping. And I, for one, do not accept the results of these elections. That many of them are very, very skanky. And some of the Democrats are finally waking up to it. Betsy Dirksen Londrigan in Illinois Congressional 13 in Central Illinois, she's fighting as well. Thank you, Betsy. So please, we have to have an election integrity movement in this country. We cannot leave it to the Democrats to give us election integrity. They failed year after year after year. So we need everybody to be able to vote. Automatic voter registration across the country. We need, and no more Kemps being able to purge the voters from the rolls. And we need paper ballots for everybody, and we got to be hand counting some of those paper ballots to make sure that the official counts on election night are correct.
And no more voter suppression.
And no more voter suppression. I heard some reports today that the Europeans were watching the results overnight going, this is a very unusual democracy that America has. It's not really a democracy. It's really just dueling election fraud. And whoever can, has the most money to buy the most ads. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous in this country. So I want to ask everybody here, if you'll do me one favor. Nancy Pelosi, in all of her corporate, Democrat, centrist BS, announced today that impeachment was going to be taken off the table. She lost her dang mind. You are exactly right. That is how she interpreted all these millions of people going out to vote, right? So please, pick up the phone, call your representative, your Democratic representative. Most of us have Democratic representatives in Chicago. And tell them, no, do not vote for Nancy Pelosi. We need a Speaker of the House that's young, that's female, that's black. Okay, my choice is Barbara Lee from California. Barbara Lee, exactly. But there's many. Put Ocasio-Cortez in as Speaker of the House. For God's sakes, do not inflict Nancy Pelosi on us. That blue wave yesterday was a demand to block, a wake-up call to block Trump and his Republican thieves, burglars, election fraudsters in every step. We do not want Nancy Pelosi to be sitting down at the table and making nice with the Republicans. Like they're going to compromise, right? What are they going to compromise on? They're going to only cut the Social Security for half the elderly across the country? It's ridiculous. What a ridiculous thing. So don't forget to call Durbin and Duckworth as well. No Nancy Pelosi for Speaker of the House. And please like us on our website, Clean Count Cook County, and come on out with us to the audits. We do election integrity work all the time. The time to protect the elections starts the day after the election so that we can get laws and procedures in place that actually protect our vote. So thank you for listening. No to Pelosi. Thank you.
Dr. Laura Chamberlain, Clean Count Cook County. Let's give her a hand. So just a quick reminder, as she said, Nancy Pelosi is not going after impeachment. She's really okay about letting the Trump-Pence regime consolidate fascism. So
she's the enemy.
Basically, and that's, like the rabbi said, definitely not kosher. The fact that the Dems won the majority in the House does not change this, as we found out. So today, nationwide protests are spearheaded in every major city by refusefascism.org, and continue at even greater scale on Saturday, November 10th, are the way to protect this demand and this movement before all of society, to carry out and challenge others to join us, the path to achieve the goal before it is too late. Everyone who refuses to accept a fascist America should join in these protests. Donate generously. Donate.refusefascism.org to this movement and spread this to everyone you know. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you use. And you know what? Before I leave this stage, before we move on marching, I'm going to repeat the pledge one more time, but I want you all to join me, line after line. Make sure we make Nancy Pelosi's ears bleed. We pledge that we will not stand aside while there is still a chance to stop a regime that imperils humanity and the earth itself. Join us. Let's stand together. With conviction and courage. Overcoming fear and uncertainty. To struggle with all we've got to demand. The Trump-Pence regime must go. In the name of humanity. We refuse to accept a fascist America. This nightmare must end. The Trump-Pence regime must go. I hope that made Nancy Pelosi's ear bleed, or every corporate dem out there. Thank you for showing up.
Our message today is that this whole election season has actually seen a further consolidation of fascism, that the unleashing of violence by this regime through the rhetoric, the hate-filled fear-mongering that was actually ramped up and escalating even as people were being killed, including in the most violent anti-Semitic attack that this country's ever seen in Pittsburgh. This is actually the facts on the ground as a result of this election season, and this is a furtherance of this fascist agenda. So the mission of Refuse Fascism is more important than ever to get in the streets in our millions to drive out this regime. And it's very important to also recognize the fact that the leadership of the Democratic Party is preaching a message of conciliation and collaboration with this regime, which we know is not the path to actually stopping fascism. So again, it is on us to be in the streets, and we're calling on everyone to join us this Saturday at 1 o'clock in Federal Plaza here in Chicago and around the country to say, no, we refuse to accept a fascist America. The Trump-Pence regime must go.